Okay, we're gonna continue in Hilchos Yesodei Hatorah. We are in the middle of the second chapter, Halacha Yud. Um, so we just got finished through talking about the order of the Malachim up in the different levels under the Kisei HaKavod, and we said that each level is a little bit different than the level below. That was Halacha Chet and Tet. So in Halacha Yud that we're about to start, the Rambam goes back to talk about the existence of God and his oneness. It's a little bit difficult to understand, but I'll try anyway. It says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makir amito v'yodea oso k'mo shehi. God literally recognizes and understands the truth as only he knows it. And he does not know anything that is external to him. Okay? Because when it comes to ourselves, okay, we are not one, we are many, meaning we're separating us and our knowledge, okay? However, when it comes to God, his knowledge and his quote unquote life are all one. Okay, this is very, very like, metaphysical and like really high up there. I think what the Rambam is trying to say is that everything in God is one. Him, his beginning, but it's hard for us to conceive anything but that. But in terms of us, we have external sources, like we go to the library, okay, we go online, we get fed information. So the knowledge comes from somewhere, and then it gets imparted to us. But with God, his knowledge, his everything is all condensed, for lack of a better word, into one being. Okay? Because if he were to live like we view living people, or know, right, knowledge outside of him, right, external to him, then he'd be just like us, says the Rambam. Hayasham Elokos Harbe, there would be many gods, V'chaya V'daita, there would be many different gods, okay, with different lives and knowledges. Ve'en hadavar ken, but that's not true. Ela echad mikol tzad mikol pina ubekol derech yichud. Everything with him is oneness. Nimtza ata omer, hu hayodea, v'hu hayadua, v'hu hadeya. All right, so the Rambam is taking the word for knowledge, which is das, and he's basically saying that God encompasses, right, these three angles all in once. Okay, he's the he knows it all, right? He is the definition of knowledge, okay, and he knows about knowledge. Very tricky, right? Again, Yodea, again, Hu Hayodea, V'hu Hayadua, V'hu Hadeya. It's like all the three forms of the word das. He knows, he's the known, and he is the knower. Okay. V'davar ze ein koch bepel amro, and the Rambam says it's difficult to even discuss this, to understand this. V'lo ozon lishmo, or to hear it. V'lo belev adam lahakir al burav. And it's difficult to even comprehend this in its entirety. This is a very deep subject that the average human cannot process. Ulefichach omer chei paro v'chei nafshecha. Ve'ein omer Chei Hashem ela Chai Hashem. That's why, says the Rambam, when you have a pasuk, if you remember in Miketz, where they swear to Paro, it says they swear by the life of Paro, and it also says Chei also in the Nevi'im, right, which is a lashon shvua, right? It says by the life of your nefesh. Okay, it doesn't say Chai, it says Chei. But when it comes to God, however, says the Rambam, Ela Chai Hashem. Why? She'ein haboreh v'chayav shnayim. Because the creator, God, and the living the chaya, right? God and God's life are not two. Kumo chai hagufim hachayim. That's why the word chay is plural. So you could say it about Paro, he was a human, or you could say it about any other human. But when it comes to Hashem, it's chay. Everything is in singular. Okay? Okachai hamalachim. Lefichach eno makir habruim v'yoda machmas habruim. So therefore, he doesn't recognize the bruim, that's what's created, the yodam, or knows them, machmas habaruim, kamosha anu yodanosam, ela machmas atzmo yadam. This is, what do they call it? Epistemology, like how do you know the things that you know? So this is, I think, what the Rambam's trying to say, that God knows everything in terms of himself, not through terms of others, in terms of other creations. Like we interact with people, we get knowledge from external sources. He's like kind of repeating what he said in the beginning. But when it comes to God, it's like a one-stop shop, right? There's no need for outside. It's all contained in one. I don't know what the word you want to use. This is way beyond my pay grade, this specific Rambam. It's very hard to understand, but I think his point is that it's all contained in one unit. So therefore, so the Rambam concludes that since he knows himself, by definition, he is everything. So if he knows himself, then he knows everything. For all the existence depends nismach lo b'havioso. It all depends on his existence. Okay, that was a tough one. Dvarim elo sha'amarnu b'inyan zeh b'shnei prakim elo kamo tipa min hayam. This is a very rare Rambam to like review what he said previously, but he basically says that everything we've been saying, right? This is the second chapter of this Hilchos Yesodei Torah. Everything we've been saying up to now in these two prakim are like a drop in the bucket. What's necessary to explain this is literally a drop in the bucket, and we could go on forever. So if you want to label the topic that the Rambam is talking about, it's called what we call Maaseh Merkava. Okay, Maaseh Merkava is referring to the like what goes on up there. It's the term from the beginning of Yecheskel, where the first couple of prakim Yecheskel describe the Kisei HaKavod and the lion and the eagle and the bear and the Redskins. No, that we're not talking about teams. And the and I forgot and the man. I think right. There are four, and it's discussed in the second parak of Chagiga. He's about to talk about that in the next halacha, that this kind of discussion is what we call the Maaseh Merkava. And when you learn it, you can't just learn it like, we learn, Bava Metzia, you sit down and, you talk about a Gemara. It has to be done in a special setting. And that's exactly what the Rambam is going to quote now. Tzivu chachamim harishonim shel lidosh b'dvarim elu ela leish echad bilvad. Because this discussion is so deep and pretty much uncomprehendable, the Chachamim had a rule. They had a commandment basically that it could only be explained to one person at a time. All right, this is actually taken from a Mishnah in the second chapter of Chagiga. I believe it's Daf Yud Beis, I think, something like that, where it talks about things that could only be said, certain halachic subjects could only be said with certain people, Arayos and Maaseh Merkava, and this is what the Rambam is referring to. Right? And you can't, for example, you can't give a class to 40 people and talk about, the Kisei HaKavod and God and all these things. It's just way, right? It's not a good idea. And it has to be done to one person at a time, and he just can't be anyone. He has to be a special person, right? He has to be a chacham, umevin midaito. And what we do is we give him like highlighted points. Okay, we can't even go in depth with this person. So shemetz min hadavar. We give him like hints, little signs. Okay, that's what's called a shemetz. For who mevin midaito v'yeda sof hadavar b'homko. And hopefully this. Oh, I lost. Up and he cut me off. I thought that was funny. Okay, anyways.
Yeah, it was so funny. We thought that you forgot to charge your phone.
Yeah, oh, that's what it was. Okay. But anyway, so we're in the middle of talking about how this is called Maaseh Merkava, and you have to be very careful how you teach it. And I got cut off. So yeah, it definitely was funny. But anyways, let me just conclude. This actually concludes the chapter 2. So I'll pick up where I left off. That the Rambam says, "Udvarim elu amukim ma'od." This is very, very deep. Udvarim elu amukim ma'od ad ma'od ve'ein kol das v'deya ru'oya l'savlon. And the average, Joe Schmo cannot tolerate this. You have to be on a certain madrega. V'leim amar Shlomo b'chachmaso derech mashal. And this is what Shlomo said in Mishlei, Kvasim lil vushecha. Right, a pasuk in Mishlei that says a keves is a lamb. Okay, it's a lamb for your clothing. And the note over here says that the word keves, a lamb, also means lichvosh. If you do it with a shin, it means to be kovesh. It means to hide, right? Like kovesh schar sachir, right? Like you're hiding something, you're taking something away. So it has to be hidden. So that's a reference to in Proverbs that this is something that is hidden. Kacham uchachamim beferish mashal zed dvarim shem kivshono shel olam yihiyu lilvoshcha. Okay, it has to be hidden. Should be hidden things. Should be your clothing. Klomar lecha levadcha v'al tidrosh osam barabim. This is not a topic that you should give to a public class. V'aleim amar. Right? It should be for you with no strangers around you. I'm going to bring another pasuk from Mishlei. From Shir Hashirim. V'aleim amar. It says in Shir Hashirim, Dvash v'chalav tachad l'shonech. Right? Honey and milk under your tongue. Kach perish chachamim harishom dvarim hem kidvash v'chalav yeh tachas l'shonech. Basically says that subjects that are as sweet as honey and milk should always be under your tongue, kind of like hidden. So on that note, we will continue on not